Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I am really excited because I'm joined by a friend of mine, Anita Nall Richesson. She's a great friend. We've gotten to know each other over the past few years. We're going to get into how we met and all of that. But she is awesome. I'm going to read this. She is an Olympic gold, silver, and bronze medalist, and she's the former world record holder. I mean, you're just like you. I'm gonna let you take it away. But
Oh
this is the
gosh.
first interview that I've done in a while because I've been very selective about doing interviews on my channel, and I only want to bring uplifting content that I think is relative to the collective, and the circumstances in which we met and how our relationship has blossomed and what you're doing is something I extremely align with. And we're going to get into 5D athlete and what all of that means. But for now, welcome to the channel, Anita. Tell everybody just a brief bit about yourself, and then we're going to get into it more
Okay. Okay. Well, you said the big bulk of my swimming sports career. So I was in the Olympics at a very, very young age, at only 16 years old. And then I didn't even have my license yet. And then I won 3 medals. I was a world record holder. I was an American record holder. I was all these things in sports. And then I got very sick. And I had this sort of whole time period of awakening during my sickness and recovery and getting back to health. And that's how I got into all of this stuff that we're going to talk about, and how I ended up eventually seeing you on Michael Jaco and saying, oh my gosh, I need to talk to you about my daughter. I knew the minute I saw you talking with him and what your mission was, A, that our missions would align with what now I'm into, and B, well, A was that you would help me with my daughter, and B was that our missions aligned. So that's how we came to know each other, and that's a little bit about my background.
Yeah, and we're going to get more in detail in a moment. But Anita has prepared this really amazing kind of brief video, so everyone watching can get. And I've seen it, and it's I think it's a really very well done. So Anita, go ahead and play this for everybody. We'll sit
Okay.
back, and then we'll go over some things afterwards.
Okay. What I want is that this is absolutely captures my entire life in a nutshell. So we'll just watch this real quick, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Following your local news, NBC's coverage of the 25th Olympiad continues. Coming up in swimming, another U.S. world record holder. This time it's 16-year-old Anita Nall in the 100-meter breaststroke.
I guess you could say my teenage years weren't like most. While most kids my age were preparing to get their driver's license, I was preparing to break world records and bring home the gold for Team USA.
A great swim and a great smile from the teenager from Towson.
I was on top of the world. And then I wasn't. Only 1 year after the Olympics, I got terribly sick. I would sleep 13 hours a night and still wake up completely exhausted. Repeated illness and fatigue became my normal life. And once I realized that mainstream medicine wasn't coming to save me, I began a decade-long quest to rediscover my health and my vitality. And even though the continued illness took me out of the sport that I love, the most challenging time period of my life helped me discover the most critical element that every athlete needs for success. I've spent the last 40 years of my life dedicated to sport at varying capacities, from being an elite athlete, speaking, teaching, and coaching. Both my husband and I have worked with the most elite athletes in the world, teaching them the 5D ways. We've even raised 2 5D athletes of our own. It's finally time for a more connected and intuitive sports world to surface and a new era of Olympian to emerge.
That's it in a nutshell.
Beautifully done. I love it. So that gives everyone watching kind of a little bit of a background on your history, your illness, and what it's led to, which is our theme for today, which is 5D athlete. Again, this is something that even before you and I had our first session together, I was designing for Aramis Creative Learning Center, which was a program and how we can cater to the athletics arena, because it's so misguided, and we're going to get into all of that and why. But when we met, it was like, yes, finally somebody is kind of in alignment with what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing. But you originally, Anita, came to me because you needed help with your daughter. And what we discovered in your session is that your oldest daughter, and you can tell us a little bit about it in a moment, we came to find out she's part of the Artemis group. And she is one of the first, I think, I think one of the first 5 that I discovered that were in that group, and she was the oldest at the time.
Yeah.
And I was still learning about the Artemis group. Now I actually am in the works of finally, I know I keep saying this for years, I'm going to do an Artemis video, but I actually have scheduled it, and it will be out probably within days after this interview or at least within a week. I promise everybody. But I did talk about the Artemis group in my book, my recent book, Starseeds and the Great Awakening, and I will do a video just on that group. But I come to find out in our session together that she is very much a part of that. And let's talk about that experience, Anita, and also how the athletic component came up in that session and why. And it's very relevant to the 5D conversation. So
Yes,
tell us what happened.
So my daughter, her name is Sunny. She is a bright, vibrant, shining star and has a lot of energy that comes with her. And when she was younger, she's 18 now, so she just graduated from high school, but I believe I found you, maybe she was like 15, 16, and it was just a really challenging time for us, my husband and I and the family, and just raising her in a way. She was completely different. She's 180 from my son, so it wasn't the same. What am I doing different here that's not working? It was mind-blowing because we had like an easy go of it, and then like this whirlwind hit us. So she's unbelievable in all these amazing ways, but I just didn't know how to like hone her in and figure her out and what she needed. So that's when I called you. And when you said that she was part of the Artemis group, it changed the way I could relate to her. And it was just, I could see everything you had said about that group. It was spot on. I mean, no one had ever been able, I had taken her to all kinds of different, behavior specialists and things like that were just like energy workers, everything in her years growing up, and nothing really just hit home like, yeah, this worked. And just me having that knowledge helped me to be able to understand her better. And it just, for me, I feel it completely shifted our dynamic, and wasn't this power struggle now all the time, because I just really didn't care. All I could think of was, how can I guide her power into her power? That's all I want for her, is to just like, how can she not have to go through, all this crud that I went through to get to where I am at 40, almost 50, and have her be that at 18. And she is all that.
Yeah. She's a powerhouse. And
Yes.
the thing about Artemis group is they're very misunderstood. They're all female. This group is specifically female for a reason, because they're bringing in the divine feminine, but they're also warrior spirits. So they are powerhouses, and they are here to just break down walls, like just crumble them. I mean, to oblivion. They're quite challenging to parent, because as parents, we don't want to break them, but we have to create boundaries, and it's very difficult. And my daughter has lost, I mean, it's sad to say, but she lost a friend recently, and she was totally judged for who she is. And the sad thing is, the mother knew this. We had conversations about it many times. She said, how much she was open to supporting. And then she just cut us off and said she just blocked us, and she actually got really nasty towards the end of the whole thing. And it just breaks my heart, because the one that suffered, the two that are suffering are the two girls
The two
that
girls,
can't
yeah.
be friends, because they didn't have a problem. They understood each other. And it's the adults sometimes that come in and they don't understand. And these girls are misunderstood. And it's a shame. So it's part of my goal is to explain and on their behalf why they are the way they are. So in your case, Sunny, and one of the things that comes up in the Artemis group, which is what we're tying into the athletes, is not all, but a good percentage of those in this group, they have such high energy and they need to channel it in some way. So they're either very athletic, strong, and they have a bigger build, whether they, and some of them can be overweight, but some of them are just big. They're big boned, they're tall, and they have a vast amount of energy that they have to process and channel out. And so a lot of them are athletes. And then those that are like my daughter, who don't like sports or any of that, they find other creative ways as an outlet. So they're into art or some sort of creation, some singing, dancing. But Sunny, she is a beautiful athlete, just like your whole family. And so talk about some synchronicities with the what she chose to do years after we spoke.
So when we first spoke, and this, I think you'll relate to this with what just happened. I can look back on being, like you said, she's the oldest. I can relate to all of those experiences that you have experienced and more, because it's a bit of a struggle for them to relate to girls their age. And Sunny was a soccer player for many, many years. And I think the dynamics involved with having to like be on a team as this like powerhouse that wants to be the leader and wants to kind of dominate in some ways, like she physically is dominant. She's smart. She can take over things, but it's like, she's not really good at politicking.
Mhm.
So it's a little brash for people and it can be a lot. And so, so lo and behold, her senior year of high school, her very first soccer game, she was on track to go play like a Division I college somewhere for soccer. But her first game of her senior year, she got an injury, what's called an ACL tear, which is in sports probably one of the worst injuries you can go through, because it's a very long recovery. So it takes a year. It takes a real full year to really get your leg back in order from that. And it requires surgery if you are going to want to play sports again, which she did. And so during the recovery phase for her, she said, I think I'm done with soccer. I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to play these games that go on in terms of just being on the team, being a leader. And I'd like to do an individual sport, which I had been saying for a long time. I'll just say my intuition told me that would have been better off for her, but she had been accustomed to soccer. So she decided out of the blue to throw javelin. And it took us a few, Artemis has the bow and arrow. And so it's hilarious to us because it's so similar. And we didn't even realize the similarity until like a week after she said, I'm going to throw javelin. And then we're all looking, I saw a picture, I think, of Artemis, and it hit me. I thought, oh my gosh, she's throwing the deal. And it's so similar. So it's going to be a fun journey to watch. She's already advancing in it and having a great time.
Yes. And I think a lot of these starseeds that are just like powerhouses, warrior spirits, both female and male, they are here to help shift the trajectory of where we are going with athletics and sports and that whole arena. And so let's get into the 5D athlete, where that came from.
Yeah.
And I'm really into this. And like I said, I was looking to hire mentors years and years ago that would kind of lead our athletic department, because it's not my area of expertise. I've never really been into competition. So it was like, I need somebody that knows what they're doing, but can help advance these children and learn what they should be learning out of sports, and not just competitive based, but what can they learn about their body and how to push the boundaries, but also care for themselves and work with others as a team. everything that goes into the 5D concept. And when I met you, I was like you, that's what you're doing. And it's amazing. So tell everybody
Okay.
what you do, and then we'll get into these beautiful oracle cards that you made that
Okay.
I'm in love with.
Okay, can I show my
Yes,
thing? I
yes.
think that'll help
Okay.
solidify understand it better. I like to kind of speak to pictures. So what 5D I have been working in sports for, as I say, since the time I was 5, I was an athlete. So
Mhm.
this is really, for me, this is my whole life. It's not all I know, but it's the bulk of what I know was sports. But what I started to notice after I went through my whole journey with healing from being sick for over a decade of time period and mainstream medicine not helping me, I realized no one was coming to save me, so I had to heal myself. And during that time period, I went back to school for nutrition. I started learning all these different modalities of things to help myself. I got into energy work, and I thought, why isn't every athlete doing these things? Why don't they have access to these things? And one of the things, as I started working with other elite athletes who are more current than my time period, I started asking them, these are kids that have come out of Division I programs. And I started saying, tell me what you learned in college about nutrition. So I'd have a starting base with them to find out, what they knew, what they didn't know. And what I discovered was that they didn't know anything. They had never been taught anything. So essentially, these kids are being used and abused and spit out to the world with, hip problems, shoulder problems, mental health issues, certainly spiritually disconnected. And it's all from a system that just used them and abused them and put them on a cover of a magazine, of their, athletics magazine, but didn't really care for them. So that bothered me greatly, that I was seeing a lot of the same thing, which was people, athletes coming out of sport, not empowered. So I'm all about empowerment, empowering athletes on all these different levels that you can see here. And the ways that I do that vary. It varies from my nutrition education that I teach to motivation and support to the empowerment cards that I'm going to show in the next slide. But these are all the ways that I just really help them. And what I learned is that, and I've worked with a lot of elite athletes, and what I'm trying to do with 5D is take it more and provide what I've done with elites at a high price point to the masses, to people whom this resonates with. And so the cards I thought were a great way to introduce people who are maybe, like just starting to get into this stuff. I thought this was a great way to bring in some athletes. So there's basically three main themes in the cards. The first one is trust your intuition. So oftentimes poor athletes are just like robots. Like we just, do the next thing, coach, tell me what to do. Like there's no real connectivity to what they're doing or alignment. I mean, there has to be on some level, but it's not in a way that they really know themselves, know their bodies for the most part. I'm not saying every athlete, I just mean the masses of them. And so I just realized over the years that what I was doing here, I thought I was teaching nutrition all these years, and that's not what I was doing. I was helping, being the bridge to connect athletes to themselves. And when I realized that, that's when I figured out, oh, this is 5D athlete. It was an easy next step for me because of all the ways that I was helping them connect with themselves. I help with them, really connect with their intuition and then shine their light and be who they are and not who the program says they have to be, or just dwindle their voice so they can be that robot that they were kind of conditioned to be. So it's breaking that matrix of athletics is what I really want to see these athletes do. And I know they're out there. I've met tons of them and they're coming. And that's why I say, like, a new age of Olympian is emerging. They're coming out into the fold and you're going to see them more and more. There's actually a few that I'm pretty sure of, older ones, that are still out there in the limelight, but they haven't quite called themselves Starseeds, but they are. And so, and I can tell you can always tell which ones they are. And then the third thing is self-care. I have seen, I can't tell you how many athletes that I've met that they just break themselves down. All they do is the physical work. They have no problem. No, any athlete that comes to me has never had a problem with work. They don't need to be told, they don't need to be made into a man. I mean, every athlete wants to win. They want to do their best. They want to experience their best. And so what I have found is they lack in is self-care. They just don't even know where to start to begin to care for themselves. So that's the decathlete card is perfect for that. They play 10, they've actually essentially have to learn 10 different sports to be a decathlete. And so all of these cards have an Olympic theme to them. And my first go of them, I'm actually thinking of another deck already, Sherri. I didn't tell you this, but I think it's going to be called, it'll be something like Messages from Mount Olympus. That's kind of what I was.
Oh my
Would that be
goodness.
so cool?
I love it.
So that's kind of the next thing, but that's it in essence, the cards, they're really to help athletes to connect with themselves, to think a little bit deeper about what they're doing. I have had athletes, I'll ask them, let's just say it's a supplement, for example, and they come to me and they've been taking it for a year. Well, what do you think about the supplement? Do you think it's working for you? Do you think it helps? And they go, I don't know. And they just like struggle to really even know if things they're doing are working for them. So we have to start with that basic level of let's just get to like feeling a little bit more.
Yeah, all great points. And I want to show the card. So this is what it looks like, and it's beautiful box. We're very well designed. I love these cards. And I want to show them off a little bit because I have them here. And of course, my favorite ones have these strong messages. Which one you had up, which is intuition. I mean, they all have a beautiful message. I love this one about abundance. They're just so vibrant. And these these are your messages. You didn't Google search to find. I mean, Anita came up with these messages. I believe you downloaded them, you channeled them from your higher self and the group that you're within to help athletes, through their own self-discovery, their own self-awareness, their own healing journey, and everything that comes with it. And these cards are like, this one's about expansion. And one of my favorites is, here it is, this one. Look at this beautiful, this lungs to just breathe. Sometimes we just need to take a moment and just take a breath. And that really is life-changing when we just take a moment to pause. But talk us through how you design the cards, because we have, we have the coach, but the remainder of these cards is like you mentioned, is an actual sport. So we have the skier, the boxer, the thrower, the archer, the wrestler, the cyclist, and you go through. And what's the purpose of these cards? I want people to understand that aren't familiar, these affirmation cards, like, well, how do they use them, and why are they designed in this way? Explain it to everybody. I know, but I want you to explain it to them.
Sure. Yeah. So yes, every one of the messages is from me. I did not, get the dictionary term for abundance. It's all, I feel I downloaded these because I made them in, I don't know, a week. That's including the pictures and everything. And what I was trying to do was relate more of a metaphysical concepts with sports and with these particular Olympic sports. And even though you're not a archer, you pull the archer card, that message can still resonate for you. So that was the purpose, is that all of the messages are able to make an impact on someone or help them think a little deeper about themselves or their situation where they're at. Like the golfer talks about a hole-in-one. Well, do you know how many people get a hole-in-one in their life? Not many, but it's a concept about a hole-in-one. It's like a win. It's a win is around the corner for you. And athletes are often very alone. The biggest misconception about sports is that it's empowering. Are there people that come out of sports more empowered? Absolutely. But do I believe that the majority of people, I know more athletes that are so broken and have to do such a recovery healing job after sports than I do that are totally empowered when they come out. And so for me, it was how can sports be an exciting and empowering time and an introspective time and fun and all of that, like wrapped into one, where you learn and take care of your body and get skills for life? How comes you're not learning about nutrition in sports? Why are they not learning how to take care of their bodies? It is their number one asset when it comes to training, is your body. And why are they not learning about how to tap into energy and all of that? So it's hopefully an introductory place for athletes and parents of athletes. Parents also, they don't know. My parents knew nothing. My parents, Sherri, I broke an American record in 1991 at a swimming. My parents weren't even there watching.
Are you serious?
I promise you, it's hilarious. I mean, they just like they didn't have money to travel, and sports take a lot of money to travel.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have the money to come with me on that particular trip. And so I called my mom. I'll never forget it to this day. I was being drug tested, which means that when I'm done with that, when I broke the American record, a woman comes up to me and hands me a card and says, "You're being drug tested." So she then follows me around until I can produce a urine specimen in front of her and give it to her. You know, I'm a 15-year-old in a bathing suit. I can barely get my swimsuit off. It's so tight. And now I have to pee in front of this woman. It's a very stressful thing. But I finally called my mom after I finally got done with that. And I said, "Mom, I just broke a world record." I barely even knew I broke a world record. I mean, that's how crazy it was for me. And like my ascent was so fast. It was as fast as my decline. So it's kind of funny and interesting all at the same time. But my experience has bred these cards. My experience of not just being an athlete, but working with athletes. My husband works with athletes. I married a coach. I mean, we know the synchronicities and all of that are,
Yeah.
That's how it goes. But so we just, with all that we do, we work with athletes together. That's how the cards came about.
Yes. I love all of this. This is a really important conversation, and I hope that people watching this share this with parents and those that they know, children that are athletes or adults and everything in between, because this is a really empowering conversation, because there is help and things are changing. Because traditionally, the sports arena has been a little bit more barbaric. It is, a lot of it is funnel, for professional sports. It's about how much money that these athletes can make for their teams, and there's a lot of branding involved, and really minimal to know what mental wellness is incorporated into their routines at all in their training. And so they're just like they're treated like machines, output, 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 but there's no input. And they're I think that a lot of them suffer silently, and people are, they're not as empathetic to them, because they think, well, whatever, you just made $20 million, boohoo for you. But really, a lot of them are dying inside, and they are silently, and they don't have a lot of people to talk to about it. And that's the public arena. But we also have the children, the young athletes. My son decided he wanted to dabble in baseball. He's not a big sports guy. He just really liked to hit the ball. And we said, well, let's try baseball on a team. Do you want to try it? And he's already that type of kid that doesn't do well on teams anyway. So like he's, better on an individual sport, but we wanted him to have that opportunity. Well, we happen to live in Florida, which I did not know. That is so big. They take baseball very serious here. I mean, it's unbelievable what we got ourselves into. And it was so competitive. It was so like heavy that this poor kid didn't enjoy any of it at all. I didn't enjoy it as a parent. It was just too heavy and too intense, and he wasn't even having a good time. Well, fate has it, he halfway through the season last year, after we spent a fortune on all of the stuff that he needed for that, he fell off his bike in the most ridiculous way. We just left the house as a family on our nightly bike ride. We're not even out of our street, and like his foot gets caught and he does a flip and breaks his arm. And I know intuitively right away, I was like, he doesn't want to play baseball anymore. Not that he consciously did that on purpose, but it was his soul's way of giving him an out, because I believe he was like, he really hated it. And he was just, it was a whole thing. So
just like Sunny, same as Sunny. Was her soul's way of giving her an out from soccer, because she was good at it and excelled at it, but didn't really love it. And it wasn't going to be her future.
yeah. And I think that I think a lot of children are turned off because a lot of starseeds coming in are not, they're not that in that barbaric mindset. They're not programmed in that way, that it's competition to the maximum, where it's like win or die. And like, and it's just, they forgot the point of it, and they're not even having a good time. And a lot of the starseeds I've noticed, especially my clients, they don't enjoy sports, and they don't want to play because that is not a team mentality. So things are changing. And I think that these children are coming in to say, I don't like it. It doesn't need to be this way. How can we change it? And then parents like yourself and your journey, you're here to help advocate for them, but also advocate for the adults, because you are an Olympian yourself. You've been through it. You've been there. And all ages need assistance right now in this shift. So this is a really important conversation. And I think your cards are something necessary right now, because like you said, you're not pulling a card and you're going to become a golfer. It's a message that comes along with it. And I love how your mind created a message for every sport category that has a bigger meaning for everybody. So it doesn't matter if it's the sport you play, you get the, you get the swimmer. It has nothing to do with being a swimmer. You don't have to be a swimmer. It's the message, the substance is in the message, and it's so empowering. I love these cards so much.
The swimmer is about canceling out the noise. I mean, it's unbelievable how my sister and I were talking about this one time, about after my swimming career, how being underwater is very peaceful. It's very mind clearing. And think about swimmers. We're going up and down that lane, staring at a black line on the bottom of the pool for hours. There were sometimes 3 hours I'd be staring at that thing with hardly anyone talking to me, except my coach when we take a break at the wall. And so it can be a very introspective time, as long as it's not consumed with like fear and anxiety about how you're doing. Are you keeping up? Or it can be. And so that's what these are reminders of. And I want to go back to Sherri. We haven't talked a ton about my son, but football player. I want to go back to what else isn't working. So there's a lot of antiquated coaching, we'll just call them techniques, that I really want to begin to disclose. And athletes themselves can't talk about it. They can't. It's a code, because you talk about it, you're now going to be ostracized, and you're now, you're not going to make it. You won't get to do what you want to do. So, and this I've found happens in more of the, I would say more of the boys sport. I've seen it in girls sports too. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, I got really excited when I started seeing women coaching, because more women coaching. Unfortunately, the women are turning into, they think they have to be a man to coach.
Yeah.
And so this is another paradigm that's like gotten really confused. They think to lead and coach, they have to be like a man. And I think it ends up being really destructive to the women that they coach, because they're not now being like a role model for the women. They're now being manly. And it's really aggressive to the women they're coaching. It's not new and fresh. It's just more of the old. I don't know if that made sense, what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
If like you haven't lived it, it's hard to explain, but it's really, as a parent watching, and also not only that, as someone who's married to an exceptional coach who understands what I'm saying here and doesn't behave in that way, it's extremely degrading, some of the ways that coaches behave. And again, athletes can't talk about it, because they won't reach the pinnacle of, they won't get to where they want to go if they out these things. So I'm going to be that voice. I'm fine with it. It's what I'm here to do. It's my mission. And I know that there's things that have to be said that are a little uncomfortable about what goes on in coaching.
I agree. I mean, I wasn't heavily into soccer when I was younger. I said I didn't like sports, but there was about 5 years that I was on like 4 teams and played for my high school, and it was my life for a little bit of time. It was that short period of time where I was just really into that unity. I just wanted to be a part of a team, and I really enjoyed soccer specifically. But I mean, the coaches, man, I'm an empath and I'm very sensitive, and like they would
Yes.
scream and yell and degrade you. And I would go home crying, and like it never built me up. It never made me have any more
No,
confidence.
no.
I always thought, like, why are you talking to it? And these were women, but I had mainly women coaches. And I've seen it, and I saw it with Skylar's baseball. Actually his coach was pretty good. He was lucky, but I saw other coaches screaming at. I mean, these kids are 8 years old. They're screaming at these kids.
Yeah.
Like, why? And like the mom and me wanted to get up and be like, shut the F up and
Yeah.
take my kid, but like,
Yeah.
I also don't want to be that mom. So I kind of just sit back and let my son kind of figure it out. But then ultimately it didn't work out. But I know that that exists. And I work with a lot of clients and children that talk about that. And it's kind of a dirty little secret. And I think it has to do with leadership in general, whether it's
Yeah.
sports or mentorship or teachers at the schools, or bosses at your place of employment. People have this barbaric, egoic, masculine tendency to reign and control people, and it's a paradigm that we need to break down in all facets of our reality, but specifically to this conversation for the athletes, because they need to be built up. They need to feel like they are supported, they are validated, not put down, but also appreciated. A big part of the 5D athlete, in my opinion, and I want to get your perspective, is and this is coming through from my sessions. This is not something that I've sat and thought about too much, because my kids aren't really athletes, to be honest. But I've worked with a lot of children that are, and their souls are coming through and saying, we need to move towards, because a lot of people incarnate because they want to experience the physicality. How do you push the limits? How can how far can I jump? How fast can I run? How fast can I swim? How this, that, and the other. And it's about testing the limits and the boundaries of this physical space, but also appreciating your body as this beautiful vessel that is supported and nurtured. And it's so many more things. And these children are coming in to say, this is what athletics and what sports could be if we if we drop that kind of masculine control mentality and just appreciate the body. And how do we care? That's where the nutrition comes in. That's where the proper sleep comes in, and all of the elements that go along that
Grounding, the
more than I
essential
do.
oils.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it.
I mean, what are your thoughts about all of that?
You're 100% on point. I'll just give you a couple of examples that illustrate, so people listening can understand more what we're talking about here in the real world, how it looks. So what we're talking about here is, for example, a coach should never, there's no reason to give nicknames to your athletes, because unless it's some sort of empowering, like my girlfriend, who was a Division I All-American swimmer, her coach called her Rocket, and she loved that. I mean, it made her feel like, yes, like he sees me, he sees that I can be powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. She loved it. But on the flip side, you don't want to be calling a kid or a girl a princess or a I don't even really want to say some of them that I've heard, because it's so degrading. And why would you do that? Why would any coach think that that is a good way to get the best out of that kid? Coach's number one job, to get the best that they can out of that kid. That means they have to know a little bit about the kid. And it seems like these coaches nowadays, they skip that part called get to know my athlete and understand what they want. What do they want out of this? Therefore, it doesn't, the kids just fall into it. Sometimes they fall into it because their parents wanted them to do it. It's like there's this complete disconnect.
We'll get into the parents in a second.
Yeah, there's that. And there's that. I was so lucky. I was so lucky in that department, but I have seen kids who are not so lucky. Other things that I see are baseball. I have a friend who, her son played baseball, and she had read this study about a certain number. He was a pitcher, and read this study about how, if you go to any high school right now, you'll see all your pitchers after practice sitting there with ice on their shoulders. Why do they have ice on their shoulders? Oh, well, they're a pitcher. No, they're being trained improperly. They're being overworked they're overthrowing. It doesn't have to be that way. So she said to the coach, so talking about when parents step in sometimes. So now parents steps in, mom goes, you're not doing that with my kid. You're not going to overthrow him. And I'm not dealing with a surgery that A, I don't want to pay for. B, I don't want my kid to have to go under and be athletes will jump into surgery. Parents will throw their kids into surgery at the drop of a dime nowadays, because it's become so normalized. It's disgusting. And why? Because the training is completely out of whack. And so this particular person I'm talking about, she said her kid never had to use the ice after. He was never sore. Why? Because she put a limit. She would sit there with a ticker and count how many times he's pitched. Let's just say it was 50 that the study said before your shoulder starts to degrade. So she would go to the coach and say, hey, he's had enough today. And you know what the coach did? Now the kid gets called Mama's Boy.
Oh.
So now that's his nickname, Mama's Boy. Come over. You're up. It's now not about why isn't it about? Wait a minute. I think I see something here. He doesn't sit after practice with ice on him because he's not inflamed like the rest of you. Maybe there's something to learn here. They don't do that in general. There's good ones out there. I don't want to throw everybody under the bus here, but in the majority of what my husband and I have seen in the last 25 years is, during our time of athletics and then our coaching time, it has a long way to go.
It definitely has a long way to go. And, we're lucky. We are lucky. I don't know if it's a Florida thing. I'm not a sports mom, so I don't know. But they did have limitations on their pitchers, and they were only allowed to throw a certain amount in practice and games, and then they had to rotate. So that is something I did notice that I didn't know what it was. And my husband was like, oh, that's why they do that. I was like, oh, cool. That's great. So like maybe things are changing, but a lot of times they don't. I mean, I remember when I had when I tore muscles, my hamstring, and I was a center forward, they just wrapped it up and said, play anyways. And I would be in the worst pain. I would be crying sometimes, but I didn't want to let my team down. So I would just do it anyways. And I actually had pain for years after I stopped playing in that one hamstring, because I kept playing over and over and over through that. And so we have to look at the mental health that goes along with athletics, but also the physical and emotional wellness. There's so many components to it. And I think a lot of that's bypassed for the sole purpose of winning. And that's my biggest, I think that's my personal biggest conflict with sports. And it always has been, is that it's always about winning and nothing else. And I think that there's a delicate balance. I think you can win. But I think it's more important that you're having fun. When my kids are playing any sports or we're doing anything out, I always ask them, are you having fun? Yeah. And if they're not having fun, then we won't play. And I'm serious about that. So when they have temper tantrums, because my daughter, she's an Artemis group, she's very competitive. If she can win, she will have a temper tantrum. She will scream. She'll kick her brother. She'll punch him because she gets so mad. And I have to rein her in. And I'm like, you're not having fun. So we're not going to play anymore. Winning is important. I'm not saying that. It's nice to root for a team and have a winner, but everything else in between is also important. What has led up to that game, the practice, the nourishment, the challenges and the endurance and everything. And then the game itself is about how do you play well with each other as a team, and did you have fun? And winning, I think is great. It's awesome when you win. I didn't enjoy losing when I played soccer. So like, I understand the element of wanting to win as well, but it's so much more than that, right? I mean, it's much more. All the boxes need to be checked.
It's a huge opportunity time for kids who are drawn to sports. It's like, it is a huge opportunity for huge growth in their life if the right people are in place to empower them. If not, it can be absolutely crushing for kids. I have seen it repeatedly, kids get out of sports they're totally broken afterwards because of how they were overtrained, either physically or they were just beaten down mentally. Like you said, I don't think, like, I don't need anyone to make me tough. I was an Olympian. I've had home births with my kids. I just don't need, I never needed that. And I'm so thankful that my coach, as I was growing up, did not have that mentality. He did not, he trained us really hard, but he never did that whole, like, I'm going to make you tough thing. Or you need to you need to be hardened.
Yeah.
It happens a lot in football, more than anything. It's like, no kid is going to be a Division I athlete. Okay, maybe you have 1% of them that needs a little bit toughening up, but it's rare. My husband worked in the NFL for over 10 years and has coached athletes for over 20. And it's rare when someone comes to him that's not already tough as nails. It's just, that's not the thing that the athlete needs. They need someone who believes in them. They need someone that sees them. That is, in my opinion, the number one what should be goal of a coach, is to see their athlete for who they are. And all that takes is a couple conversations. I'm not saying you have to be their therapist.
Yeah.
Okay. But you've got to at least know who's standing in front of you. A lot of coaches won't even know their kids' names on a football team.
It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is something that these kids are devoting their lives to. And when I say that, I mean that. I mean, it is an all-day event. My son, who's a quarterback, he goes at 6 a.m. He doesn't get home in a Division I program, he will not get home until 7 p.m. because of school and everything else after it. Then when he comes home, guess what he has to do? Study film, because he's a quarterback. So he has to do twice the amount of film study than most other positions, because that's just what it requires. And he loves it. He's obsessed with it. I've asked him many times, I've said, are you sure? Like, do you just want to, it's just a lot. And he is, he's hell bent on it.
It's the devotion in them. I mean, when you genuinely like something and you have a passion, you want to keep doing it. And that's what we want to, that's the fire we want to fuel within these children, is we want to bring that out. And these coaches, ideally should be helping them discover their strengths, working through their weaknesses, but in a way that's that's supportive. I'm probably sounding like a mom here, but I have coached. I coached for 5 years. It was soccer for kids, but they loved me. They loved Coach Sherri because I was nice. I was supportive. I lifted the kids. I was like, yeah, you can do this. I never yelled at them, so, I think people have that natural ability, and some don't. But let's talk about the parents, because parents, I'm sorry, but you are the problem too sometimes. And I've seen it, and I feel for you, because you were probably trained that way by your own parents, and you got yelled at, and your parents might have been, just unruly. So we have to take control, and there have to be boundaries. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm curious what you have to say about parents in general and this.
I have a lot too. Yes. I have met a ton of fantastic parents, like really just supportive, loving parents. And I have also met a lot of excessive, maybe the best word, over the top, over involved, pushing their kids because they didn't experience they want their kids to experience something they didn't. I think people look at my husband and I are masterful at our respectful modalities, we'll call it. Me is nutrition and wellness. Him is strength and conditioning. So we pair well together. Our kids chose to be athletes. Of course, we exposed them to it because what we kind of know, we've exposed them to art and everything else as well. They chose their path. I'm just giving you an example. I think people look at us because of our mastery of what we do and probably think that we're those parents. And people have no clue. We have tried. I mean, my son used to play guitar, and I said, sure, you just don't want to go back to being like a rock star? Because it's so much more fun. It's so much less anxiety provoking for me to watch him play guitar than go throw that ball. So we just happen to be, masterful at what we do. So of course we're going to help them achieve the levels they want to do. We're their support system primarily. Their coaches have not been, for the most part. There's been a few good ones along the way, but the parents that I've seen, have a lot of people put their kids in sports that they did just because they did it, not because their child says, I love this. I love this. I can. When I was a swimmer, you could not get me out of the pool. I left my house at 7 a.m. on a summer day. I could walk to the pool. My parents worked all day. It was the thing I could do on my own. I'm like 8 years old walking through the woods to get to the pool for practice because my sisters were supposed to take me. They were older and they didn't want to get up because they were older and they were teenagers. But I'm like, I'm not missing practice. I'm going. So I was 8 years old walking myself through the woods to the pool, and no one could have stopped me because I loved it so much. Does your child love this? Do they want to give it a try? Is it their idea? Now, I'm not saying you don't expose them. Of course, you're the parent. Like, it's your job to expose them to sports if you want to. If you think they're inclined to it, expose them to different sports. I exposed ours to all different ones, between swimming, football, soccer, basketball, wrestling, track, all of them. And that's because they wanted to do sports. They're very physically active and need that outlet physically, but it was ultimately up to them what they're going to decide to do. And so that's a big mistake I see a lot of parents make, is they just put their kids in something and their kids feel stuck and they don't want to upset mom and dad because mom and dad loved it so much.
Yes. Yeah, you're
and have all
you're
these
so right.
memories. Yeah.
Or they want them to excel in something that they weren't able to, or they want to create a mini me. My husband was an athlete, and he was Division I wrestling, and he was like the all-star quarterback for his high school football. He was that dude, like we probably would have hated each other in school because I was not into that stuff. And he doesn't want his kids to do football because he was like, he had some injuries, and he's like, I don't want them to go through that.
Yes.
And we had this joke in the house that that my kids say I want to be a soccer mom, and it's funny because soccer, I do love soccer, and I played soccer, and I still like to play outside, and none of my kids, for fun, like just kicking the ball around, and none of my 3 kids, not only did they not like soccer, that they're just like, Mom, like, who likes to run? And I like to run. So I'm like, how do I not have one of the 3 kids that will play soccer? I want to be a soccer mom. Like, I want to go to games and watch soccer, but it's a joke. Like, we are joking in the house. And one time my middle son came and put his hand on my back and he's like, Mom, if you really want to, I'll play soccer so you could be a soccer mom. And I'm like, no, like, it's okay, but that's the we're making fun of it, right? Like,
Yes.
And would I love to have a soccer player? Sure. But they have to like it, they don't like it, I'm not going to make them do it. But we've always exposed our children to every sport possible. And if they liked it, they liked it. If they didn't, but see, my husband and I are different. Like, I won't force them. He'll say they have to play at least one sport. They just, whatever it is they find, they can figure it out. So we kind of battled with that. But not all kids are athletes, and I think that I proved that with our 2 out of our 3, they're really not athletically inclined, but they excel in so many other things that kind of make up for it. That is an extracurricular type activity. So we have to just, as parents, try not to project our wishes and our likes and dislikes onto them. Same like if you don't like soccer and your kid wants to play soccer, oh my God, you want to play soccer. Like, my husband hates baseball, and my son wanted to play baseball, and he's like, are you kidding me? Privately, like, that's the sport he chose, but he's like, all right, let's do it. He's at the games, and and we joke in the background how boring baseball is, but but we support
arduous.
Yeah. Yes. But we let them be whatever it is that makes them happy, because they're individuals. But the parents that are screaming at other people's children at these games and yelling at the coaches, I mean, get a hold of yourself. Like, seriously, it's an environment that you should act professionally, just like you would at your job. I think
absolutely.
that it's
absolutely
way beyond inappropriate.
Stop working out your childhood traumas. This is for coaches and parents. Stop working out your childhood traumas onto your kids and other kids. When Sunny was in soccer, I'll never forget this. We were on a particular team. She was like, they were getting to this level where at 8 years old, where they were going to travel. And first of all, I thought that was ridiculous. And we ended up pulling out because if you can't win in your own state, why are we spending all this money as like 8, 9, 10-year-olds to travel? The whole system is extremely corrupt. And so I just saw that early on. And so, what was I talking about? The soccer moms. And so this particular team was very aggressive, and the moms would actually yell at our own teammates. Like it's not even like they were yelling, "Hey, she hit her," like from the other team. It's like to Sunny, why'd you miss that?
Yeah.
Why are you talking to my daughter like that? Hey, coach your kid however you want, but there's no one, I'm not talking to her like that. There's no reason for you to be coaching her. Parent of Sarah next to her. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand what gives parents that thought in the first place, that that's even a good idea to do anything other than watch and smile. And be excited.
Like that's appropriate to, cheer them on, say great job. But leave it to the coach to decide where the position they should be and how they run and this and that. It's a lot. And I think that this conversation is great because it's opening up something that needs to be visited as far as this paradigm that is breaking. It is breaking down. We can see it. But when things break down, we have to, when we building, we have to decipher and discern what was working and what wasn't working in an honest way, and then move forward. And so let's talk about your 5D athlete business. You have a beautiful Instagram page that you post videos frequently. I love your videos. You and I are very similar. My theme has always been, since I was young, how can I empower others? Yeah. And I live by that. How can I empower children? Your mentality is, how can I empower athletes? So you have a business, you coach athletes. You have cards, you have an Instagram, beautiful page. Tell us about kind of the different things you do.
So I have online programs for nutrition. I have the cards, and I also am an essential oil expert. So I make oil blends that help that are geared towards athletes, like muscle mend and things like that. So those are my 3 main modalities that I utilize. And then along with that, of course, is the empowerment, the coaching of the motivational side of things that happens more within the framework of the other things. Right. So I have the online programs. When I've done a lot of one-on-one working with Olympians, with gold medalists, world record holders, UFC fighters, all different NFL Pro Bowlers. And what I've done over the 20 years of doing that is taken the strategies that I've used with them and created a utilizable system for the masses, more of the masses. So I'm still honing that in. I'm thinking of doing my own app. We've kind of talked about that. And I really want to get some input from parents, what they think would be most beneficial before I go in that direction. But I am trying to expand more than the just one-on-one work and getting it more to a bigger audience. Yeah, beautiful. And I'm going to put all your links below in the description, but how can people get these amazing cards? So I'm working on my my e-commerce page. I'm not the best at like technology and all that, but I have a few people helping me now with that. So I'm getting the e-commerce set up. But until then, if you just go to my 5D_athlete on Instagram, you can just message me and we'll get a pack shipped out to you. And you can just Venmo me. I have 6 more. I forgot to tell you this, Sherri. I only have 6 or 7 more packs left of this box and this design. I have created one of these. It's called I think they call it like a pull-out box, where you'll actually be able to pull it out like a drawer box and set the card up. So they can, like set it here and have their card for the day beside their bed. Oh, so I love that. Yeah, and then change the card. So it'll be a better box. But these, I have 7 left and they're only $20. So that's what this one is. It's going to jump up a little bit because they're a little bit nicer on the next set, but a lot nicer, I'll say. The box is so cool, the pull out. Well, I can't imagine them being better than this. So these are lovely. I like them. And
the thing about this is you can utilize these cards for anybody for just anything in life. Like I was reading some of these and you don't even need to be an athlete. This can just be an empowering card that you and your family pull or your children pull for the day, for the week.
Yes.
That are just relatable to life in general. I love positive affirmation cards. There's no woo-woo involved. You literally just pick a card for the day and you read it and as an empowering message and that's it. I mean, there's nothing. So those of you that are skeptical about oracle cards, it's nothing like that. It's just simply cards with beautiful pictures and messages that,
and I believe the energy will find, like the energy of the card always the right card always finds the person.
Yes,
and it's just right for that day, whatever they pull. There's no right or wrong about it other than you just do it and you see how it makes you feel. And maybe you journal about it. And I am looking, I have started creating a journal for the deck so that kids could pull a card. Yeah, maybe like it's a 44 card deck. So maybe it's like 44 days of journaling. You pull one card every day, or you don't have to, there's no rules. It's just fun. It's just fun and empowerment and a little bit of journaling and self-reflection. That's all they were intended to be.
Yes. And I think that you hit the nail on it. They're absolutely beautiful. The messages relay. I personally am a fan, and my daughter likes to play with this deck, and from time to time she will pick a card and she thinks it's so much fun. So she approves of them for sure.
Tell her I said thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna end this conversation for today, but I think this might be the first of more, because I think we should really dive deeper into certain avenues with regard to the 5D athlete, and we can get in more specific if you're okay with that, Anita, later on, because this is just the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg in the conversation of 5D athlete. There's so much more we need to talk about, but this is a good introduction. What do you think?
I would love that. Anytime, Sherri. You know I'm up for a good talk.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for coming on today, and thank you to everybody for listening to this amazing conversation. If you resonate with it, please share with people that you think would also resonate, and families that have athletes. I think this is a really important conversation starter, because I feel like a lot of people are thinking it, that don't know who they can talk to about it. And it's important because it relates to so many more things than just your athlete, your child that's an athlete. It's so much more than that. It's who they are as an individual, how they validate themselves, how they care for themselves. So many things are involved in this whole 5D arena. So
so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Until next time, I hope that this video it serves you well today. Bye.